I always noticed that they, mainly when people come in, give them either a AA big book, NA literature blue book, or Bible, if that. But most of the time, it's not the Bible. It's either one or the other, or nothing. And it brought about, like, it's almost like a vision I had, or a need for it to be in a place where I saw it. Being on like a desktop, or like on a welcome packet when someone comes in day one, broken, lost, confused, really not wanting to read anything, and especially anything that has to do with AA or NA or the Bible or God, anything of that nature. So usually there's really nothing there, and being a part of that, being actually someone that's been in that environment, on a personal level and working on it on a professional level, I just saw a need for it. There was a vision for it. And when it came about, like, it was like crystal clear. Like the vision that I saw it, that when the person walks in, it's there, it's something easy. And I started writing. I literally remember writing for 30 days straight. And each day came with a challenge. It was like I didn't want to, or there was like something going on. It was like my energy wasn't there, but I persevered and kept writing, daily. And then with the book, it was written, it was put down on a notebook and left for years. It was almost like I just had it there, and I made, fast forward many years later, I had an opportunity. I quit my day job working in these environments, and as a result of quitting the job, being there for the family, started driving, for an Uber service, or driving for Uber. I ran into an old friend that just happened to have showed up in our town, just randomly passing through, and it was crazy because he mentioned, that he wrote a book, and he showed us like this process, which really wasn't that difficult to do to get it published, and we just pursued it from there. We sought out, where to go, and it reminded me, and it was wild. It was almost like an alignment of like I made the right decision to quit the day job to do this hard work on my personal level. Is very difficult, staying home with the kids all the time for that period of time, and not really sure where I'm at, fully into the unknown. And when I ran into this old friend, it just was like kind of confirmation that like, hey, like, you're on the right path with this, and let's pursue this. So that was essentially how like it got brought to life. The book, the goal of the book really is, to reach that person, that's coming in day one, broken, hurt, lost, confused, and to give them, a sense of, knowing that they're not alone, giving them a sense that they're not actually going crazy, that this is something that a lot of people have experienced. And it's there in a sense to like kind of ease the process when they come in. It's there to just show them they're not alone in this thing, and to walk them on a daily basis. It's literally written to be read one day at a time, put down, leave it, next day read it. And yeah, it's just kind of something to relate to understand, that, like I said, you're not going crazy. And yeah, I think it helps. It's definitely one of those things that it can reach a lot of people. It's really just what describes the whole book is it's something to read. It's not tied in with religion. It's not tied in with recovery like AA, NA. It's not tied in with really anything. And the book was written first person, with a collaboration of my personal experiences with thousands of other people's personal experiences put into one. So when you're reading it, it seems like it's one person's experience, but really it's thousands of people's experiences, and mine including, going through this day by day kind of like wrestle and battle within self, like I'm going crazy. I don't belong here. This is not for me. This is a cult. This is religious. I'm not going to church. And it's almost like a roller coaster of emotions, thoughts. And like my wife said too, you know, it's like a lot of people that read it might not see the significance of it because it's not designed for the well, healthy person. It's designed for the sick, in a sense that when someone's broken, lost, confused, it speaks to them in volumes. And because, you know, it's designed for the sick, in a sense. The audience, you know, really my heart was in a rehab facility, a treatment facility, for that person coming in day one, sitting there on that desktop or the welcome packet, in as many facilities as possible, because I really do feel that it's something easy. You know, it's not like a complicated, deep read that's going to confuse someone. Or I want to see it in rehab facilities all throughout the world, as when the person comes into their room, or, you know, they walk in there and it's sitting there, take it or leave it. And it really just helped the person, you know, kind of relate a little bit, you know, get a little bit of comfort, get a little understanding, realize they're not actually the first person going through this. So I do, you know, that's the vision I see it as in a rehab facility for drugs and alcohol. But also, after writing it, I saw another kind of audience where I could see it as being something where family members or, you know, loved ones going into rehab, buying it as a gift for that person going in, and buying one of them for themselves, and kind of doing it as like a group read, like, or like as a read together, and then processing it together as they're going through the stage, kind of so that it gives an understanding to the family member or the loved one that, hey, like, so what is it? What do you think about this? You know, how do you relate to this? Like, this makes sense to me. And that's like something that came about after writing the book, which is beautiful, you know, to have, because a lot of people don't understand that mindset. They don't really expose that or like talk about it enough. I think just my personal experience, like with the people that are outside of the rehab or the facility. And then also seeing it too is like something that, you know, when people have bought the book, they can look at it. Like if you've bought the book, open up to any page. And if you're working in a recovery environment, there's something on every page I can guarantee you that you could do a processing group with your whole facility, with, you know, a whole meeting on, because it has so many elements to it that that people can relate with or talk about, or the insanity of the thinking that we have, or anything. So it's a real good topic maker or presenter for like a group setting. So when I saw that, I was like, well, that's beautiful, you know, like going into rehab, even for myself, you know, sitting down with a group of guys and being like, or women, and be like, hey, what day are you on? You know, and then literally, let's take a look at this, take a peek at this, and go on their day that they're on, read through the reading for that day, and say, let's pick a topic. And that's what made it become so beautiful. And that's why I see it going so far, like going into so many places, because there's so many things that are in there that are like little gems that, you know, I can't say I took full responsibility for in having it there. It was inspired, divinely inspired in some sense, where it was kind of like I forced myself to write every day for that 30-day period, and things came to me kind of as I was writing, and thoughts and like these things. So it was a lot of divine, to me, help that inspired this thing. So seeing it out and the end result's cool. It's a roller coaster of emotions, thoughts. It's literally a process, right? So day one, you're completely in a fog. From my experience, you know, coming off the streets or coming off hard drugs or drinking like on a daily basis for my whole life, I'm completely just like, my thought process is shot. I'm complete. I can't probably even remember the last sentence I read after I read, you know, like I'm literally completely in a fog. So it's written to that point where each day it takes you through that stage. So the stage when you're first coming in, it's like, I don't even know what is going on. I'm losing my mind. I'm going crazy. Like, I don't belong here, things like that. And as the time goes on, it's like a process of, in a sense, the healing process, where the clarity starts to come little by little. You know, the emotions, you start to get feelings back. You start to remember things that you did. You want to, you know, hurry up and get the process over. You get this false confidence that, you know, you got this, you know what you got to do, and you want to get out of here. But it's wild how the days kind of match how, like, I personally thought in, like, say day 6, where I was like, all right, well, I'm starting to clear up a little bit. I'm not going through the withdrawal symptoms, and I'm hearing this thing, and I'm attached to my way works. I know what's best. And as you're going through the my way works, you start to realize that my way actually doesn't work, and then you're into the unknown of, I don't know any way that works. I don't know what's going on, you know. And then it's wild. As you read, you can see, like, it's like the switch. It's this, I feel better, I'm leaving, I understand this, but I don't, I want to be here, but I don't, you know, like, I got to fix everything right away. Like, you know, in about like a week, 2 weeks, you're kind of like, all right, I did a lot of damage, I owe a lot of people. The fear kicks in, the anxiety kicks in. You're like, you know, what, I got to take care of this now, I got to address this now, you know. And then it's wild, because as you start to go on further in the recovery process, especially with a 30-day treatment, which is designed for specifically, you start to realize, like, you know, I've heard everything, I know everything, what's there, you know, I've heard all, I know what I need to do, so I'm really wasting my time here. I need to get the heck out of here, in a sense. And I experienced that too, because I remember, like, 3 weeks in, I was like, I know exactly what I need to do, and I want to save my family some money. I want to get the heck out of here, you know, like, this is crazy. Like, there's nothing more you can teach me. There's nothing more I can hear. And it almost builds like a wall, like a barrier of like, the level of being teachable and not being teachable, of being humble and not being humble, where you're, you know, I always say, like, the teacher thing, you know, if you keep, for me, if I'm always thinking I'm the teacher and not the student, then I'm blocking myself from learning, you know, because I'm in these groups, I'm processing things, and then I get to a period of where I feel like I know everything there is to know, you know, and you can't tell me anything different, and you're blocking yourself. And that's when I remember I, like, had that barrier where I was going to leave, and the people there said, hey, Len, like, give it that next week or two, just give it that. Everyone, what they said to me was, this is something that happens with majority of the people. You're not the only one that thinks this way, and based on what we've seen, you should try to stick this one out. And going back into it, after thinking that I know everything, and humbling myself and becoming teachable, becoming the student, not the teacher, in a sense, in my train of thought, it was like something weird happened, where I recognized that I don't know really what to do. I really don't got this. I don't know what's going on. I don't, you know, it was almost like I knew there was a long journey ahead, and many, many more things to learn and understand and try to walk through. And that I recognized that this place I was at, it was safe. And when I tell people, if anything, being in rehab, the safety would be mainly from myself. Meaning, like, that I didn't have, like, that element or that person or whoever to just reach out and just go get what I need to get relief when I didn't feel right or things didn't go my way. So yeah, I mean, the book, it just takes you, like, through those stages. It's really, and it's wild. As I wrote it, it didn't really come together until after I saw the whole thing as one, and I realized, like, wow, they're so aligned. Each day and the process and where they're at is so aligned. And it was something, you know, bigger than what it seemed, really, you know.
Great.
I spoke with a lot of people. I was in positions to speak to them, you know, with undivided attention, you know, environments where people came to me and we could really have, like, these in-depth conversations and really get authentic, get real, get honest, brutally honest with what's going on, what we're thinking about, you know, relating to each other, But being in those environments and having these conversations, these are things that they mentioned. These are, what was in the book. This in the book is a lot of things that was mentioned. Taking them out on outings, and them coming back and telling me the stories. Like if you've seen probably in one of the pages where the guy found the crack pipe, and the crack pipe, and it set him off, and they came to me about that. That wasn't actually my personal experience with one of those things, but it was something that I experienced where that person literally thought they had this thing all together. They were like confident, they were motivated, they're inspired, they're like, I'm unshakable. I got this thing in the, I'm going to do this. I'm on cloud 9. And then they're going to outing and they run into this situation, which just completely just shows them like how far they have to still, go along on this journey, and how little they know about this recovery thing, this lifelong process. And so it's just a collaboration of stories with these guys and a train of thought, like where they're like, hey, I'm leaving now. I'm out of here. You guys, this is either you want all my money, you guys are in this thing, you're against me, you're something you have against me, or it's a cult and this is some weird thing going on, or this is like religious, I'm not about it. So it's like a collaboration really of all these people coming to me and as in counseling them, in a sense, just in a sense being real with them and having these authentic conversations. That's the train of thought. There's definitely been like a inspiration to continue something to read for the parents and for the young ones, and the idea of the second book for the parents. Just even thinking of it and already coming up with ideas, it's going to be a pretty challenging book, probably very emotional, but very exciting to write. I'm just thinking about it, it's like, man, it's going to be a good one. So definitely want to carry on the book with what's next, but also where the book is going, what it's leading to, in a sense, what's the vessel for where it's taking us, and the heart and inspiration on that level is going mainly towards starting, I would say a foundation, but it's a business or company that is geared for helping people get into recovery, treatment centers free, and we're calling it Lost Black Sheep. So that's actually already in the works, ground level. It's a beautiful thought. It's a beautiful idea that's come alive. Mainly helping people get into rehab for free, and knowing the amount of volume like that's going to come with the help. People, once that word is out, treatment free, rehab free, or assisting with getting into a place, it's going to just blow up, in a sense, with the lines, people, emails. So that's in the works right now, and using the book almost to speak to people, even on a level of possibly making it to where each book is sponsored towards the person that goes into the rehab. Once we assist them, they get the book with it, or if you buy the book, it goes towards that foundation of the cause. And what came about Lost Black Sheep was personally working in the industry long enough, seeing the amount of people that desperately need the help, that are calling, begging, pleading to get themselves or loved ones the help needed. They're dying, in a sense, and being told the two magic questions: what's your insurance look like, and do you have money out of pocket? My experience, severely addicted to drugs, no insurance policy that I had, burnt on so many bridges that no family member would even want me on their policy or to even assist me with that, and definitely didn't have, say, $30,000+ a month to go into a facility. So it left me kind of at a place where, what do I do? Where do I go? Where's the help? I need help. Where do I go? And then you get into the level of a place that maybe state-run, government fund, which, not saying anything's wrong with those, maybe that's a good humbling experience, but being treated like a number, like being treated very, like, in a sense, treated like nothing, like crap. And you have to fend for yourself, and the quality of that treatment would be, in my experience, very low. You know, it would be like a hospital setting, if that, sleeping, bunks, whatever, you know, comes with that. But so that inspired us to like start something that is giant. And with something giant like that, that's the help needed, the guidance, the funding needed to make this happen, is beyond human kind of like understanding, at least from my point. Because when I think of it, it's like there's going to be a need for, the funding is going to be so high that it only something divine would be able to provide that amount and that flow to keep it going. Also with the Lost Black Sheep, it's something where, you know, this is something that came to me as we came about the name and came about getting this thing, you know, started, was we want to get everyone that truly needs the help, and not being so based on the end game results or like how many people are doing so well, which is, we want to hear those stories, but we really want to just get as many people the help possible and leave the rest up to God or whatever you believe as the results. And us not to be so focused on the results to say, hey, like we this is why we, you know, ours is the best or anything like that. The heart behind it is we want as many people to get the help, the assistance they can, and once they get that assistance, it's up to them to pursue what's, you know, where they go from there. So that's the vision behind it. A Lost Black Sheep, you know, we came up with a name mainly because you hear, you know, the phrase black sheep of the family, black sheep of society, where I speak for myself. I'm the black sheep of the family, where everyone looked at and said, we don't know what to do with him. He's out of control. This person doesn't belong here. He's not part of the structure of the family. Like, you know, he's an outcast in a sense. And I feel like a lot of people kind of can relate with that element of being like the outcast of the family, not being looked at the same, being treated differently. Also the element of being lost, you know, and that speaks volumes, because for me, I know I was completely lost in a sense of who I am, what I love, what I want for my life, where I'm going, how I'm going to get there, like completely just out into the unknown, lost, confused, frustrated, in a sense, borderline, like not sure if I even want to live anymore. And yeah, I feel like this tied in together, the lost black sheep, it just speaks volumes that like the lost will be found, the lost can find hope. The lost can actually find a direction, even just any direction, from just being confused. So that's in a sense what came up with, that's what the name, you know, that's how we decided, I thought of that name when we were discussing it, and like, hey, like that speaks volumes. There was a story recently where it was a book that was purchased and it was left in a household. And I believe it was a family member, a younger family member, picked the thing up and read the whole thing just because it was sitting in their living room. And it was wild because they didn't understand some things, the terminology. They read it and then they brought it to a family member that had been through the process or going through the process, and it gave them this like channel to actually connect and talk about it, because before it was like this like elephant in the room kind of element, you know, vibe, where they, you know, they didn't know, they didn't want to talk about it, they felt very uncomfortable, they didn't feel safe to speak about what they did or where they were, how they were thinking. And it like brought them together, and for the first time, I think it was in years, that they actually could sit down at the table and talk about it and find like, you know, closure, can find understanding and clarity of like what it's about and what they went through. And it was just beautiful to think that like it was so unplanned. It was so much of an element that it wasn't like even like really written for. You know, like I said before, it's written for being in a treatment center, sitting there when you come in day one to read something to read. But that story to me, I was like, wow, that's like wild how, you know, it's being spread into these elements that I didn't know. I've given it to people on rides, doing drives for, and wondering where that went to and what household that went into and things like that. Also with people purchasing it just as support, family, friends, people that know each other, have someone that's in recovery or been through it, buying it as support, and then also then in a sense running into someone that actually owns a mega giant facility that it's going to be brought about. So like even as we speak now, there's a few really big facilities that now have the book that in a sense can be opened up to like a big avenue of like having them. We have one facility that I don't think I need to mention, but they're like, we're having someone that I don't even know pitching our book to the owner, and they're like, it's literally happening like within like a couple days, if not like a week, and they're pitching this book to get it put in their welcome packets to like thousands of people, and it's crazy to think, because I don't know this person, I have never met them, but just to see that someone would believe in it that much, to read it and say, hey, I want to literally go and present this to the owner of this facility to have it put in their welcome packets. Like, wild, and like, not even knowing who the person is, they believe that much in the book. I'm always open, like, authentic and honest, brutally honest about, my history, my past, things like that. I believe it's like a beautiful tool to reach many people. Not ashamed of anything that I've done and things like that. I've found closure, I've found peace, with all the things that came along with that lifestyle. But, as for third time around, I feel like each time, like, I had to like learn like a lesson. And I don't know if it was, something where I was like, wasn't ready. 'Cause I think every time I was pretty beat up, and I was like, I'm done with this life. I'm done with this life. But, fast forward down the road, it's like, I learned a lot about myself. I think that's the fine tuning of self is what really kind of brought it down to that last piece where, when my story ended, the last third kind of treatment was being in jail, and that's in a sense where I got sober. So it wasn't really necessarily like needing to be in a beautiful like facility with all these different cool like luxuries. To me, it was like a humbling experience. I had to be humbled. It was while I was in a sense blind. Like I share it where the day before I got arrested, in a sense where I did go to the jail, I thought I was the man. Like I honestly thought I was doing so good. And when I say that, it was because I had this, beautiful girlfriend, which she was a complete train wreck, like fully on drugs. Had this little car that I thought was nice, little engine stuff and little rims on it. Had a job working in a restaurant industry, making good money every night, but the money was spent as soon as I made it. So I really had no money, but I thought I was, this greatest, and the stories, I don't know, like it was like the moment, I remember there's so much detail to the story, but to talk about like what happened was, driving back from picking up, drugs, 2, 3 in the morning, and there was a cop on the side of the road pulling someone else over, and I wasn't even that really intoxicated. I think I like had maybe 2 cocktails at the time, and I don't think I even took any of the pills I went to go get, which, and I remember driving and seeing the cop and literally just doing what's the law. I got over to, get out of the lane when the cop was pulling someone over. And then the cop just came out into the middle of the road and pulled me off to the side. And I'm like, I don't know what I even did wrong. And took me out of the car, had me do the field test thing, the whatever you call it, and say, oh, you failed. And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean I failed? And it was so wild because in that one moment from being arrested for that, and of course, they found stuff in the car. The story goes on there, I was involved with weapons, the whole works. So I'm in the back of this cop car, and they're finding these things, and I'm getting arrested, and from there it was like I got out, and then I did something crazy with that crazy girlfriend, got into some arguing match, and then boom, the police got me again. And that was when I had to sit in there for 30 days and got the whole thing revoked. I mean, the getting out or on bond thing gone. So I had to just sit this out. And it was the craziest event you could ever imagine. It was the most insane place you would think a person could go to, being treated like an animal, and also thinking like, really, what did I do to be here, like to deserve this? The story is so long and spread out with so many crazy little pockets and moments, but for driving, not even swerving, not just casually cruising down the road, getting pulled over, to like being put in this jail, it was, like I said in the beginning, it was this like the deep, humbling experience of like an opening of like, wow, like you thought you were so great, you thought you were on top of everything, and it just like completely opened my eyes to like, oh my gosh, like I literally now have no place to live, no car, no job. I owed money for the rent, so I was no longer living there. Literally no friends, really. I thought everyone was my friend at the bar, and but really there was just these people that I knew. So I was like stripped of everything possible to like this element of, I'm here. I have nothing. I'm literally, everything is gone.
Rock bottom.
Full rock bottom. And I tell people the story of going into that place. I mean, it was like out of a movie. I walked in there. These guys were literally at the gate, growling, yelling. They were doing the push-ups with the shirt off, the whole works. And I'm walking here like, you're going to leave me here? Like, this is insane. But yeah, that's like where it brought me to where, and it humbled me to the core, and learned so many cool things. I had miracles happen in that jail. And the miracles, the story just goes on and on. I don't even know if I have time to tell of them, because it's such a big story. But yeah, like it was miracles. I mean, even down to the point where I share with other people a lot, where we ended up doing like these recovery meetings and these Bible study kind of things in the jail, and these people were gravitated towards, like, the story was I was sitting in my bunk thing, and I'm like sitting there literally hallucinating, coming off these drugs, and I'm like, I'm in hell. And as I'm sitting there literally hallucinating, I hear these guys across the hall talking about something, and something drew me to that. It was like they're talking about recovery, drugs, God, things like that. And I'm like, I don't want to hear this right now. Like, it's the last thing I want to hear, but it was literally the only thing I could hear, in a sense. Like, it just kept speaking to me. And I just got up out of this bonk thing, walked right over there, and I said, hey, what are you guys talking about, man? Like, what's going on here? What's going on? And then the guy's like, hey, sit down. And he was like, yeah, man, I was in recovery for 11 years, and then I, started drinking a little and smoking a little, and then I was on crack again, and all these things happened to me, and started telling me the stories, and I started telling stories about what happened with me. We connected. We built this like kind of meeting, almost nightly meeting, and we would sit, and it was so wild, man, because these, like I said, these people that wanted nothing to do with it, hardcore, you know, drug dealer, gangster guy, whatever it is, would just come in. They would just come right in and sit down and like not even say a word. And we would be like, hey, like, you know, we want to talk. And no, I don't want to hear anything. I just want to listen. And we're just like, wow, you know, like these things. And then on top of that, I remember the guy that I was friends with in there that was doing these meetings was, you know, he was saying like, the enemy hates this. And listen, and I'm not even joking, as we're in here talking in a sense about a higher power God and like recovery and things like that, these people would pace this hallway and like literally scream animal noises, bang on the gate, yell and curse, scream, like they were trying to interrupt this thing. It like hurt them to hear this. Yeah, it was insane. And we're sitting there and I'm like, wow, this is wild what's going on in this place, you know? And then this story started to unfold. I'm like, what am I going to do when I get out of it? I have no clue where I'm, you know, this whole thing is just, I'm like in this place. Where do I go from here, you know? And I remember, like I said, with the details of the story, the place I was living at, this lady's room that I rented just randomly from whatever, I had weapons in her house. And I also had a bunch of drugs in her house. So I'm in jail thinking, when this lady finally goes into this room that I was renting to find me, because I'm missing, and she finds the weapon, in a sense, AR, fully loaded with magazines, all that stuff. Not that I needed these things, but it was like I was so insane that I was like, had these things. I had a 45, all these things, and a big pile of drugs in the fridge with, you know, and I remember as I was sitting in there, I wrestled within myself with good and evil, to where when I was in there, and I was in these meetings with, and I was talking about, you know, recovery and these things that we need to do, and how I want this good life. I kept getting this battle when I went back to lay down in my head with this idea that this stuff is still at this lady's house. And the crazy thinking, which is kind of like in the book, where it's like, if I get out of here before she finds out, right, I'm going to literally run home, which this was probably like 20 miles from the jail or further. I'm going to literally run across the whole entire town, remove the drugs, remove the weapons, finish the drugs. Then I'm going to be done, and then I'm going to get sober. That was the battle I had every night. So it was almost like I quit, I'm done, I don't want to ever get high and drunk again in my life, to like laying in bed like, all right, I'm going to finish this. I'm going to literally get out of here probably in a week or day or whatever, I don't know when. I'm going to run and find this, you know, stuff and get rid of it, finish the drugs, of course. Then I'm going to be ready for this journey. And it was literally a battle from within. I mean, I was like, I'm done, but I want to finish it. Then I'm done. And it was this constant, like, it was eating at me. So I couldn't find peace. Couldn't find like any bit of like, you know, what I'm doing with myself here. And then I got the request that my brother, it's either my brother or my mother, put in request to visit me. And it was actually my brother, and he was living in Cayman Islands at the time. So I was like, wow, he came all the way from Cayman Islands, like, whoa, to see, you know. And he's like, came there and he couldn't believe how crazy this place was. I mean, it was like, how are you even alive in here? Which was also a moment, you know, something beyond me, protecting me. I knew that after leaving. And he came and he said, you know, you're okay? You doing, like, you're all right? But then he said, you know, I want to let you know that your landlady went into your room with her police friend, and they found the weapons, they found the drugs. They got rid of the weapons, sent them to my mother's house just to get them away, get rid of them, and threw out the drugs. And I can't tell you, like, the relief I got from that, to know that, like, I no longer had to battle this like thing that was going on. I almost think it was something like from the enemy or whatever you call it was like using or pulling me to like, to still go back to that life, didn't still not wanting me to fully surrender. And I remember this weight fell off me where I was like, don't have to go back to that place where I was living at. The drugs are gone and the weapons are gone, because to me, I'm like, also the fight was when she finds the drugs and the guns, if she decides to press charges or have the police guy do something about it, the gun wasn't registered in my name, the drugs were illegal, I'd be in here for 10 years. I would actually be in here for 20. I don't know how long I would be in there for. And that was the fight too. It's like, I'm going to be in jail for like years, So that ate me alive, thinking that I'm going to be stuck in this system in jail for a long time. And also, so it was this battle. And when I got that news from my brother, it just like lifted off this whole element of like this just like fight. And I was like, I have a clean slate. And I remember from that clean slate, someone in the jail offered me drugs. Like literally like, hey, you I got this in here. You want some? Literally probably like right after I heard that news. And I was like, nah. He's like, what do you mean nah? Like, I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm fully done. Like, I'm done for good, And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry for like tempting you. I was like, you didn't tempt me at all. I was like, I'm fully done for the count with the drug thing. And I'm willing to do whatever it takes to pursue a better life. So that's the one gem that happened, that brought this relief, right? After getting that kind of relief and that, that miracle in a sense of not having to go back to the old place or have that weighing, thought of like pending doom that I'm going to literally be in jail for a long time, and having, and fighting that battle, getting this new kind of new chance, this new opportunity to like pursue this all in. So then I was left with like, where do I go from here, and what do I do? And as we were in these meetings talking with my, some buddies, this nightly meeting, recovery meeting that we started, I found some resources where it was like, there's this thing where there's assistance from the government or state where you would literally go out and dig ditches for your stay. You would literally work for your stay, and it was a 2-year program or longer. And it wasn't easy, but it was an option. It was free in a sense to go to. And, I was so surrendered, so into this, doing whatever it takes, no matter what, to pursue this new life, that I was like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to find out information. I'm going to go do that. And I remember like I got like this, I had this court hearing that was kind of determining when I'm leaving or what's the, and of course I had a state-run attorney or assistant that really didn't have anything to do with my best interest, just kind of like there as a whatever. And yeah, I remember going to this court hearing and seeing my mother there, and the look on her face when I was literally being brought into this courtroom, chained to another person in scrubs, and how she just looked at me, and it was like, wow, like look look where he is, and even to myself, like, this is where I'm at. I cannot believe, it's very, like I said, very humbling experience. And then having this guy come to me, this attorney, and the attorney is like, hey, I just want to let you know that I'm going to be your attorney, because I'm looking for this state-run attorney lady that, I spoke with maybe briefly on the phone. And he's like, I'm your attorney. Your mother's boss, literally in a sense, paid for me to help you yesterday. And I quickly found out that this was like $10,000 right off the rip. And he mentioned that he's going to get me into a facility. He's going to get me some help. And they have a place for me to go, and he's going to get me out of here in like 2 or 3 days. And to me, I'm like, I was so taken away from that where I couldn't believe what was happening. You know, I was at a place where I was fully okay with going to this facility for years and working on a farm and making, you know, whatever it took. And then yet getting this opportunity that came out of nowhere. And it really was actually my mother's boss that I've never met. Never knew the guy. And he literally put out this amount of money just to get the help the attorney, and also paid for the treatment, which was $100,000. A complete stranger that I've never met my entire life. And I was so, in a sense, so grateful that like I pursued this thing. Like, I mean, every part, every element. I remember when they told me that they're going to get me the help, it just like this weight of just like relief and this like answered, in a sense, prayer. Because that's what I did learn from going to 3 treatments, was that prayer does work. And that I had to be almost like, I had to have a reassurance every time along the way that he was there. Like, in a sense, there was something looking, and the prayers were answered. So when I had this opportunity presented to me, I was just so grateful that it was like I pursued every part of it with just this like being humbled experience to like, wow, like I have this once in a lifetime chance. And I ran with that thing, and I pursued that to this day. And I can't say that there wasn't obstacles. I can't say that there wasn't temptation, and there wasn't things that happened down the journey and on the road. But that was it right there. I remember going to this facility, and I remember seeing these people sitting there complaining about how horrible this was and how like this is crap in jail and the food sucks. And I was just like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like with any of this, you know, I'm like, this is phenomenal. Like, you don't, if you knew where I just came from, where I didn't even have like a bed or a pillow for like 3 weeks, to like this beautiful facility with waters and gardens and all these things. And I realized, I was like, you know what, it was God, in a sense, you know, wanting to know like my heart behind like how true, like I always shared with people about that story, that like, I think it was like he wanted to know my heart. Like that's all he wanted, was to know that like, I truly want this help. I'm like surrendered and willing. And by being that way with him, he gave me this new opportunity that was like just out of nowhere. And I pursued it, man. And going back to that group, that meeting, and what I learned from that, I remember specifically, we would sit and talk about where we went wrong, what we needed to do, what do we needed to have addressed, like what was it that like we were neglecting or not doing. And I remember it was clear as day. We were like, we need to get involved in whatever we do. And that was such a key component to even to this moment now, of being involved in so many different things when it comes to recovery. A big part of my recovery is and was feeding the homeless and selflessness and giving back, in a sense where I got addicted to giving back and being selfless, to where that was what I learned from what we talked about. We're like, say you go to a meeting, you just attend a meeting, and you show up right when it starts, you leave right when it ends, you don't add any value to anything, you're not a part of it, you're not going to feel like you're really a part of it, and you're not going to feel like this is really anything that has any cement to, and you're not going to really want to be part of it. And that was my experience, like being a part of church, if that was your avenue, being a part of good, like serving, helping the homeless, feeding the homeless. And that was the element, that was the key that we like unlocked in those meetings, where we're like, hey, I'm going to go out, I'm going to join this. And my friend there was, I'm going to join the church and be join the choir and all these things. I'm going to give, I'm gonna get a home group and I'm gonna start sponsoring guys and helping people. But that was the key in that meeting I got from that. I was like, man, like when I just showed up and just was like participated and just took, it never resonated to where I went in with that new kind of perspective of like, what can I bring to the table, not only to like these certain events or places, but to life, you know, where like, what am I bringing to every situation in my life? And that's really what's kept me sober for so many years and clean is that like mindset of like, what can I bring to everything instead of take from everything? And of course, there's many other elements of going through the process of learning about spiritual principles and helping others and all those things too. But that one last little story that's funny about being like almost addicted to helping. I remember it was my birthday, and I was involved in walking these dogs at a no-kill dog shelter, also feeding the homeless at a soup kitchen, doing a feeding in the park for the homeless, being a part of a church, leading H&I small groups, big Bible studies at the house, like all these things. And I remember it was my birthday, and like for some reason, like the soup kitchen was closed that day, the dog shelter was closed, or something happened, or wasn't there on time to make it. Everything lined up to there was really like nothing going on, and I craved like what I got from giving back, to almost to the point where I remember it's hilarious. I was driving my car and I just like whipped it into Publix. And like I got out and I literally just started like grabbing these like old ladies and like these people's like groceries and helping them like put it in their cars. And like, I'll get your cart. And like, I remember I just went like crazy for about an hour, like bringing these carts in and like bringing their groceries out to these people, helping lift their cases of water, just like going crazy with helping them, you know, like. And then I remember even the manager guy looked at me, he's like, who are you? And he's like, what are you doing here? Like, I'm just gonna let you know I'm not paying you for this, man. Like, what are you doing here? And I was like, no need to even discuss it or worry or talk about it. And I remember I just went in that environment, put some lady's water in her car, put the cart away, and I just hopped my car and drove off. And like, something about not taking credit, not going and being like, you know, that's that humbled mindset of like, it's between me and God, where he sees that and he's proud. And with that, it was like full sobriety that day. It made my day. Like the thought of drinking, using drugs was gone. Like there was not even a bit of a thought wanting to use, you know. But I remember it was so funny because I just like, it was almost like a Batman kind of scene, because I came in, just shuffled the carts and just got in my car and drove off. Didn't stop to take credit and say, hey, by the way, God's good, or I'm good, and hey, good. You know, I just drove off and left the scene. And I can imagine what these people thought, like, who was this dude, you know? Mm-hmm. And I remember that made me feel so good. I like left that and I was like, that was probably one of the best birthdays I've ever had, man. It's definitely a key element that I've learned with, you know, staying sober, you know, to where like, you know, we learned that it's a daily reprieve, and we learned that, you know, each day, what am I doing for my sobriety? And when I do things like that, like the thought to escape, in a sense, get high, drink, like is just non-existent, really, you know, and that's another day down, you know, and it's a daily thing. So each day I'm doing things like that, like it's kind of like, more sobriety, more days add up till years, and then, you know.
It's kind of like you're paying it forward from what your mom's boss did for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was definitely like I would say undeserved gift, you know, especially from a stranger. But that's been kind of my story with a lot of different, you know, things that have happened to me on my journey, where it's been the unexpected miracle. Where I can only just look at something greater than me is like just blessing me for, you know, the path that I've chosen. So yeah, but sobriety is awesome, man. It's been ups and downs, you know, but like I said, when you're taking this thing daily, like, and doing things like that, like it even says, in recovery, literature about like when one drug addict or alcoholic helps another, the obsession or the compulsion, whatever, to use is non-existent. Like it's almost like vanished for that moment. Like the thought to use drugs and alcohol is just not even there when you're giving back and you're being selfless in that element.
So, what's it like tell us like what it's like for the addict, and kind of tie this back into the book. When they first arrive there, it seems like this book fills a gap.
Yeah.
It's the addict, or what should I refer to them as? The
humans, people.
Yeah.
They're
the person in recovery.
Yeah.
The person in recovery goes in there, and so tell them about what purpose this book fills there.
It's an easy read. That's like what the biggest part of this whole thing is that it's simplified. It's not tied to anything that can be used as prejudice, like religion or like AANA, anything of that nature. It's literally exactly what the book is. The title says it's something to read. Leave it at that. That simple. Take it or leave it. Like it's there for you to pick up. And for me, I just saw it as something like where they come in, they're like, what is this? Like, what is this crap? And, like the mindset's like, I don't want to read anything, but what is this you have here? Like, what, and the heart of it is written in the book too, is if you can literally just read it the one day and put it down and pick the next day up and just each day, a day read, even if it's something you don't get from it or you do, or something that like you have that need or want to like move forward and read it all at once. Like the way to use this thing the most effective, my understanding, the way it was written was you read that one day, put it down, go on the rest of your day, have it just something in your train of thought, maybe add it to your daily meditation or whatever it is that you do, and just think about it. And some days probably won't speak to you as much as others, or might not be able to relate, but I feel like that with all the stuff that's in there, there will be a few, if not quite a bit, that will like resonate. And yeah, so it's for that person coming in and giving them that sense of like, hope, comfort, you could say, like that, hey, like maybe I'm not going crazy as much as I think, or like I'm not alone in this, or like that someone else has gone through this and experienced this. Or even have those aha moments, like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, wow, I'm crazy. Oh wow, like wow, like. So yeah, that's pretty much my thought process on that with the person coming in. Is that it's like it definitely is something that will hold that person possibly just for another day, another week. Give them some element to use to kind of bring to a therapist, or bring to like a group facilitator, or like bring to the meeting to get a better understanding. But also like, on a business aspect, it's like, it's most likely gonna keep that client or patient there a little bit longer. It's not a guarantee, and then it also improves their process in a way that they can have things to work with, to think about, to bring to process groups. So it enhances the rehab experience to where it brings about some things. It opens them up to where they're not, because my experience working in facilities, it takes sometimes quite a bit of time, for a person to even just break out of that shell, or to open up to even get a little honest, and to have a book that kind of like brings that out, where they can like look at it and be like, wow, like I'm thinking this, like why am I thinking this? Let me go ask somebody. And then that keeps them there just a little bit longer, improves their experience, but also, it can almost be something where the rehab or the facility would get a better review, or get a better reputation, that like, hey, these people come in and they really got something out of it. And then also, like we mentioned before, the loved ones or the family members also kind of can get a little piece of like what's going on with them, and they can read it together if that was what they chose. But I think it's beautiful. I mean, really, like any kind of a treatment center that has a good reputation, it brings more people in. It you know, in this culture and so what we're living in with the 5 stars, the Google reviews is such a big piece. And to me, I'm thinking if they have just even this little bit more, you know, aspect or element to like work with to get those clients to open up more and to like in a sense have a better experience, then the rehab looks better, things of that nature. So I feel like it's a win-win. And not to mention a therapist or group facilitator can also use these as a tool to like generate groups, which in my experience, I've had to run many groups, generate many groups, and had to pick topics, had to pick things to discuss just out of randomly, you know, and not have much to work with. But to have this just like, boom, here it is, like, and it's powerful. And that also adds to element too, with the rehab facility getting, you know, better content, more things to work with. The books would be like more of like a vessel to getting that assistance and that help. Yeah, any kind of a meeting, any kind of recovery scene is definitely like a win-win. The book, I mean, like, there's so much in it that I couldn't really tell you that like where or what it will do or how it will work. It just like everyone kind of goes through, process things differently or sees things differently, perspectives are different. So yeah, I feel like it could work, you know, with someone that's can't afford the $30,000, not being able to go to treatment and riding this out on the couch in a sense. Like also reading that and being like, hey, you know, this paired with a meeting, paired with volunteering, paired with whatever has to be done that, you know, recovery you can't afford, definitely would improve their chances, I would say, you know, because the book does, if you read it, it does lead to something greater. So it's not a Bible, it's not religious, it's not tied in, but you do notice the patterns in the book where it does say like something bigger, something else is going on, there's something more, I'm going to give this prayer a shot, or I'm going to try. So it really is pointing that it can lead you to that, and it brings you in that path where that's the solution for me. And many other people in recovery will agree on that too, that like something greater, higher is at work in this. And that book has it in it, the element to like almost have the person curious enough to like try to see it, to maybe even look at it and like, hey, I completely relate to what's going on. This person's saying how they're feeling or thinking, and I'm gonna try like almost follow what they're doing or like what you know what they're saying. Yeah, that's a tough question. You know, I can only speak from my experience and what I've gone through, and you know, I've had family members that are also, you know, addicts, and you know, a few that haven't made it, you know, passed away. Love them, like no matter what. Always love them. There's so many, like I could say, opinions I'd have about or what to say, not to do and do. It's very tricky because it's one of those things where it's really like out of our control. Like a loved one loves their kids and family so much they're willing to do anything for them. But then, you know, we've heard the phrase of like, you know, deny them of their bottom, like, you know, love them to death in a sense, like giving them everything and like running around trying to fix or try to manipulate whatever needs to be done, so that, you know, and the thing to always realize and recognize, at least for me, is that addicts and alcoholics, or, you know, I'm not speaking for all of us, but we're master manipulators. And, you know, we played this game out there for so many years, with deceiving and lying and cheating and playing these games that we're so good at it that could easily just switch it over to the loved one and have them just do everything for them and get everything for them. And really, with the help, like it's tough. I mean, the answer to that, you know, advice is, I keep saying, love them no matter what happens. And with that, it's like, I can only share like a little story, like with what happened, you know, with my father, and he had his problems, and I loved him, and I talked to him when I knew he wasn't being honest, and I loved him anyways. When he was doing what he's doing, I loved him anyways. When it was anything that, you know, I knew that he was doing, it was just this love that was like, it's hard to even describe, you know. It, with a loved one, like you said, you want to do everything for them, but there's no guarantee, you know. It's something where you can have, you definitely encourage them in certain areas, but man, I
just love them like Jesus.
Yeah,
what Jesus.
Because it's like it's so tricky, you know, because there's really nothing you can do. You can pray for them every day, love them, you know, be there for them, but you know, there's a whole thing with boundaries in a sense too, like, you know, where you recognize, like, I'm not going to be a part of or support what you're doing when they start shifting, and that's a key element too, is when you see them veering off from the path that, and you know that they're not doing well, or they're lying, or they're playing this game again. To be the most effective would be to love them and not point out, because that's what I learned from my father and I's relationship, was that if I pointed out something they already knew and they're already ashamed of it, they already know what they're doing, they're going to put up a wall, a resistance against me, and then all of a sudden I don't have that access. So like, by loving them, even knowing what they're doing might not be right, and instead of pointing out the wrong, instead of pointing out, hey, you look at you, what are you doing? Loving them and being like, I love you. Like, okay. And maybe saying a lot less, but also being firm on those boundaries to where it's like, no, I'm not lending you money. I don't have it to give. Like, oh, like, I'm not, no, you can't stay at my house. And just out of love. And like knowing, like, I'll always be there and I love you, but I'm not bringing this element, this thing back into my household or whatever it is. But not pointing out, like I said, it was something about, I reached so many people by living like that, where it was like, they would say, I'm doing so well. I'm sober for 30 days. I'm like, okay, cool. That's awesome. Like, congrats. But seeing they're not matching what they're saying, their actions. And instead of pointing and coming at them, it's loving them. And because they know, and standing and almost standing aside, setting yourself aside and watching them have to go through some tough stuff. I mean, that's you know, that's like, that's where it becomes very difficult. You know, I have 2 young kids. I haven't experienced that, but if I ever had to, I know I would try rescue them and help them in any way, and like we said earlier, I would probably rob them of their rock bottom. I would deny them of their bottom, their true, like, but in that process of them going towards that and going through these just terrible things and terrible mistakes and whatever it is, just praying and loving them on the side, and knowing, like, it's tough. There's no guarantee, but prayers do work. Prayers are answered, and just keep that prayer alive, you know, and always point them, like, in love and back, almost like, just, hey, like, you don't have to explain anything to me. Like, I love you, man. Like, I truly love you. It's fascinating. It's true freedom, you know. It's challenging because there's always temptation. There's always elements that catch you off guard. My experience has been like, you know, the vacation thing, you know, like, where it's like, when you're on vacation, you know, you can let loose. And even if you're not using drugs and alcohol, you kind of veer away from the daily reprieve that we have, where it's like, what are we doing every day for our sobriety? And we neglect it to where we become ultra selfish. And in that, we become ultra negative, or not necessarily negative, but we become complacent. And the idea to use the drugs or to get that relief becomes stronger. So it's like you're constantly like in a learning curve of like life, where it's, you know, you understand like there's no vacation from this, but the rewards are so great that like it outweighs. So every challenge I've had, I've been presented with this, like, do I want to give up everything for the one thing, or one thing for everything, which was, I think, in the book, but also like just believing, living in that, playing the tape forward. You hear probably in recovery settings where it's like, I know if I chose to go this route, or to get this relief, or be tempted in this one moment to use drink or smoke or whatever, the consequences will be so severe. Because for me, I always share like the worst consequence that I could possibly have is none. Because then when I use and I don't get and nothing happens, I'm instantly convinced that I'm good now. I have this under control. I have this sense that like I've got something. I've got this. And I learned that my second time around in treatment, where it was a wild story, but that's for another date. But sobriety for me is like the only way I can truly have a chance at life. Meaning, like, for me, I know that I'm truly like an alcoholic and an addict. And I knew there was an issue even as like a young kid starting to dabble with drinking, that I loved it too much, that I felt different apart from other people when I did it. I loved it too much, and I didn't ever want to stop, and I didn't ever want to get away from that. And it caused just a train wreck of events, learning, just building patterns of like how I live my life, or what I believe in, and how I handle situations. And I had to unfold and unravel this whole thing in this journey. But, you know, sobriety to me is, like I said, the only way I have any chance at a dream of something beautiful that I really desire in my life. And for me, it's like just even the thought of having two beautiful children, being married, also on top of being married, being faithful in my marriage, never even, you know, being unfaithful or being, you know, anything on that element. Having this book, an author, it just unfolds, being able to travel the world. I mean, surfing and riding bikes and seeing things, and being a part of so much cool things and so many memories, and seeing the death of my grandmother and family members, and being there for them, and just seeing these amazing things transpire. Like, it's just the most beautiful thing they could ever be a part of, you know, and yet the most challenging. But yeah, like, to me, sobriety is just phenomenal, really. You know, and many people can relate to that too. People have been doing this for a while. They know, like, I know without a doubt, like, I dabble, I do just one thing of anything like that. Like, it just what happens for me is the shame, the guilt, the remorse just comes alive, because a person like me, I'm gonna cover that thing up if I can. So if I was to say, have a drink, smoke, go on vacation, have a shot, whatever, and no consequences, cover it up, that thing will eat me alive, and I'll never find peace and joy until it gets revealed. And usually the revealing is when everything just completely falls apart, just completely everything hits the fan. But, you know, I don't have to live like that. That's not my, you know, and I thank God, you know, every day. The biggest element too is I pray all the time. Like, every day, throughout the day, I'm just thanking God, because so many cool things have happened, like building that relationship with God, you know. And days, years, months, you know, go by, and it's like, man, like, just, I'm still sober, I'm still in it, you know. and so many cool things to come. Like you've heard, like, you know, the best is yet to come, and really with so many elements, to me it was like, wow, these beautiful gifts and like things that just happen in timing, his time. Just phenomenal stuff. I mean, not even like words really can describe like what it's like, and like the cool moments you have when you know like a prayer's answered, or like something, you know, you're like, wow, like that's just so cool to see. Even with the book, you know, it's like to even know that it's being used in so many areas and so many people and scattered in all these different elements. It's just exciting and beautiful.